Let's go! Level up! Stronger!
I grind through the struggle, sweat in my veins, iron and will, I'm breaking these chains, hard like a lion, mind on attack, every setback, I'm never looking back, symphony rising, destiny's calling, every rep, every step, I'm never falling. Level up, everybody level up, push it, never gonna give up. Battle the silence, conquer the pain, sweat on the floor, power in my name.
This week on Capital Discourse, nuclear nope, Iran and America's awkward nuclear talks. Iran and America's nuclear negotiations are heating up faster than a reactor core. We're breaking down what's really on the negotiating table, why both sides keep saying no, and whether this Cold War can thaw before things go well nuclear. Trade and Thunder, Harley Days, and Tariff Nights. Buckle up, trade wars are roaring back and American businesses are feeling the thunder. We're breaking down tariff policies, trade agreements, and why companies like Harley Davidson are caught in the crossfire. It's economics with attitude. Presidential pocketbooks. We're investigating where presidential funds are flowing and, well, not flowing. Follow the money, literally. We're investigating where presidential funds are flowing, what deals are being cut, and why your tax dollars might be funding more than you think. It's a deep dive into the financial side of power that nobody wants to talk about. The price of enforcement? Law enforcement comes with a cost, literally and figuratively. We're examining the real price of policing, budget battles, and whether communities are getting what they're paying for. It's time to talk about the dollars behind the badge. Paperwork and prejudice, the redistricting reckoning, gerrymandering, red lines, and political maps. Redistricting is the silent power grab reshaping America. We're exposing how lines on a map determine elections, who gets represented, and why this year's reckoning matters more than ever. Lie, downplay, delete, gaslight. The playbook is old, but the stakes are new. We're fact-checking the spin, exposing the deflections, and calling out the gaslighting that dominates today's political discourse. Truth matters, and we're holding the line. Spin the wheel, blame the Fed. Interest rates, inflation, policy decisions, the Federal Reserve is the invisible hand everyone's watching. We're breaking down Fed decisions, their impact on your life, and why blaming the Fed has become America's favorite game. Ballots and barriers. The voter identification verdict. From paperwork hurdles to shifting district lines, America's voting landscape is changing fast. Tonight we break down how new voter ID laws and redistricting battles are reshaping who gets to vote, who gets counted, and why the fight for fair access is heating up in every state. America the Divided, the Super Bowl showdown. The Super Bowl isn't just about football anymore. It's become ground zero for America's culture wars. Tonight we're examining how Turning Point USA and grassroots movements are weaponizing the biggest stage in sports. What is really dividing the nation? And why this year's Super Bowl is a referendum on who we are as a country.
To look like the sky. They tell you be quiet, don't you dare ask why. Your strength is a threat, your voice is too loud. Just another face lost in the faceless crowd. No more. But the spirit ain't gentle and the will won't break. For every future, every soul at stake. Scream, shattering the fragments of a broken dream. We rise from the ashes of the hate they sow. A symphony of voices letting freedom grow. Let it grow.
Let's be honest. If political theater paid the bills, we'd have a budget surplus. Instead, we're stuck in an endless loop of outrage Olympics, where the gold medal event is pretending simple problems require a 12-step legislative process and a national meltdown. First up, voter ID laws, the Save America Act, because apparently nothing says freedom like demanding 3 forms of ID, 1 DNA sample, and maybe, but not limited to your firstborn to vote. 9% of Americans can't even put their hands on their birth certificate, but let's make sure we make voting as fun as a trip to the DMV during a system outage. Kansas tried this, and all they got for their trouble is 31,000 citizens locked out and 39 non-citizens found. That's an error rate so bad it makes my apartment's leasing management office look competent. Meanwhile, real life. Your grandma can't vote because her birth certificate was lost in a house fire in 1952, but sure, the system is safer. Safer from what, you ask? Safer from the one guy in Topeka who tried to vote twice and still got caught anyway. Now to redistricting. America's most abstract art of democracy? Well, that's what they say anyway. Who they are, I have no fucking clue. It's more like the art of, how many ways can we slice a pizza so only my friends get a piece? We dump tens of millions into so-called fair maps that look like they were drawn by a toddler with an Etch-a-Sketch after 3 Red Bulls and a warm milk. You want representation? Good fucking luck. You will have a better time trying to explaining to your neighbors why your district stretches from your house to the next state. Yo, America, here we go, bitches. Because we're nothing if not consistent, we are going to take a break from our so-called real problems to fight about. Wait for it. Wait for it. You fucking guessed it. The Super Bowl halftime show. Because this fight never gets old. See, the NFL decided Bad Bunny would headline the halftime show. But, you know, the Grand Ole America, as soon as it was announced it would be in a different language, it was a hard pass. Now, for the first time I've seen in my life, the NFL showed some spine and said to all the haters, sit all the way the fuck down. And this time, though, in a plot twist, the FCC said it was fine too, but here comes Turning Point yelling, not on my watch, bitches. We are going to make a God-fearing America Love Fest halftime show. With the show's headline, the Republican Party's beacon on faith, Robert James Ritchie, or Kid Rock, as he is best known as. A man who has been arrested more times than that one guy your mom told you to stay away from. After all that, and the show is done, we still had more congressional statements about a certain pop star's backup dancers than we did about inflation last month. Meanwhile, at the Trump compound, they watched the original halftime show and seemed to enjoy it. Do not worry. The president sets the record straight on Truth Social, because that has to be the truth, right? It says true in the name, right? Meanwhile, your rent's up 18%, your eggs cost $9 a dozen, but thank God we're safe from the threat of interpretive dance. But let's not act like your dad is not looking at worse right now at the bar down the street with the blacked out windows. Midterms are coming. The economy is a mess, everyone's mad, and half the country thinks the other half is actively plotting the downfall of civilization, but all we can talk about is what someone sang on TV. Can we skip to the end and call him a bad bunny? Such a bad bunny. You know what you did, you naughty, naughty bunny. Now that we got over that, can we get back to not fixing roads, healthcare, or literally anything, or are we going to vote on whether democracy should be a full contact sport? Here's some reality. The average American is just trying to pay bills, keep their job, and maybe watch a little football without a moral panic. But our leaders? They're busy holding hearings on halftime shows, writing bills to save elections from ghosts, and drawing district lines like it's a Jackson Pollock exhibit. So, are we actually this dumb, or is this just the world's most expensive reality show? Because if the point of democracy is to keep us entertained, mission accomplished. If you are actually trying to solve problems, well, I'm tired of waiting for results. My dad might be back with that 40-year-old milk by the time you figure it out. Well, I guess on to the next outrage cycle. Okay, so let's lay it out. This week, Iranian and American officials are meeting in Geneva for round 2 of nuclear negotiations. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, says he's in Switzerland with real ideas for a fair deal. Just don't expect Iran to submit before threats. Translation: compromise is on the table, but only if the U.S. will talk about lifting sanctions. Meanwhile, Washington's position is evolving at the speed of a glacier. Publicly optimistic, privately skeptical, and militarily... Well, let's just say the USS Gerald Ford didn't show up in the Middle East for the sightseeing. Secretary of State Marco Rubio calls these talks complicated, which is diplomatic code for, we don't actually expect a deal, but we'll look busy trying. The US wants Iran to dial down uranium enrichment and open up facilities for inspections. Iran says it's willing, sort of, to dilute its uranium, but zero enrichment? Not happening. And missiles? Off the table. Iran's red line is thicker than the security at these talks. Let's not forget, the backdrop to all this is a region on edge. Iran's Revolutionary Guard is running military drills in the Strait of Hormuz, and the US is stacking up warships. Both sides insist they're interested in peace while making sure their military options are ready, just in case peace takes a sick day. So here's the real question. Are we watching the start of genuine diplomacy? Or is this just another round of nuclear theater, complete with threats, posturing, and the world's most expensive game of chicken? Is anyone actually moving toward a deal? Or are both sides just perfecting their poker faces for the cameras? Hey panel, Dakota, Richard, and TJ. Let's cut through the smoke. What's actually at stake here? And is there any chance this Cold War thaws before things get, well, nuclear?
Hello, everybody. Welcome in to Capital Discourse. I am your host, Dakota Jones. I am joined today with my co-host over here, Richard Cardoza and TJ Fields. How you guys doing today?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Doing pretty well.
Good. So it's a busy week. We've got a lot for these guys to consume. We got a lot of things that have gone down this week. We're going to hop into it. We've started our last week off. We got our last episode out, and so much happened the day we released it, from a nuclear nope to, paperwork and prejudice. It's been a crazy week, prepping for the midterms between Iran. The U.S. has been on another tear, and so we've got a lot to discuss. So let's hop into it. The Iran and the U.S. have been a continuous strife since the last time we spoke. It's actually only gotten worse. They've actually held off on the executions that we spoke about last with the protests that were going on in Iran. However, now we're going into nuclear talks because it appears that the Iranian government is trying to rebuild their nuclear profile from the strikes that happened back over the last summer. And I know that we're going to kind of look at a few things here, and we're going to hop in right into this panel today. I think that that's effectively how we're going to be able to get through this today, guys.
Yeah, Iran, man. I think we all should be, weary of the things that are going on in Iran, just because, it affects us all. No matter how far you are, you can be in Australia, you can be here in America. I think it all affects the world we live in today. For them to even go back after, a couple of warning shots is very alarming to me.
Well, we've got some videos here we're going to look at here. And this is statements that were made by the president, and then also statements by the Iranian president. We're really going to kind of discuss all this.
We likewise had very good talks on Iran. Iran looks like it wants to make a deal very badly. We have to see what that deal is. But I think Iran looks like they want to make a deal very badly, as they should. Last time they decided maybe not to do it, but I think they probably feel differently. We'll see what the deal is. It'll be different than last time. and we have a big armada, we have a big fleet heading in that direction. We'll be there pretty soon. So we'll see how that works out.
The issue of ballistic missiles is off table. The issue and the main focus of negotiations is nuclear, and it will be so. It will remain so. The presence of CENTCOM's commander doesn't change anything at all, and we have been told that he's there to visit their own naval forces in the region. There was a request from the U.S. side to be present, and this demand was and request was rejected outright by the Iranian side, and we said that we don't accept the presence of a military commander in negotiations, and we think that there is no connection between CENTCOM commander and the nuclear talk.
To give everybody a little bit of reference here, Iran has been building up a nuclear program for quite some time. They've also been building up this offensive capability to strike whenever. And this would be against whomever they feel fit. We've experienced this back in the early days in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars right after 9/11. Actually, there was heavy criticism that Iran should have been the actual target and not Iraq. But we were worried about the sovereignty of Iran during that time. And so they have only built up their arsenal since. Now, that all being said, we are now in a situation where we have gone in, we have blown up multiple times, hit signal strikes. We've hit some of their generals, but we've also hit some of their infrastructure. Their nuclear infrastructure specifically is what was really at target here. We wanted to take away their ability of offensive nuclear weapons. And there was some debate when we hit them last year. The president said that we had removed their ability for offensive nuclear weapons. Those weapons, the Iranians said, stayed in place. There has been back and forth on the success of those original strikes. However, where we currently stand is the Iranians are trying to rebuild that offensive nuclear arsenal. The president of the United States has said that is a hard no. We're not going to allow that to happen. And now where we're at is there's a lot of protests from the opposition side within Iran. There are protests also from opposition leaders that are gaining strength. And so in response, Iran has decided that they were going to go ahead and try to arrest and then also execute those who were in protests because of the laws over there. They feel as though that is what would be appropriate. That all being said, what we are now seeing is that there's pushback from not only the international community, but the U.S. saying that this can't continue or we will come over there. Fast forward to this week, the president has put more pressure on their nuclear program to cease, and they have continued. That all being said, where we are now, guys, is number one, we're in a nuclear standoff with Iran. We do believe that there's going to be sending over naval warships here. Which fleet would be designated for that would be typically used would be the Fifth Fleet, but we'll see what's getting used here once they announce that from the Pentagon. But in general, guys, where do you think that we are? I mean, like, honestly, it's a total mess. I think that if we were not so much with our eyes on the ball in Venezuela, we would have been able to intercede here sooner. But we were worried about other things and infighting in Greenland, and we allowed this issue to continue to creep up when it could have been dealt with more so last year. Where are you guys at?
Well, with Donald Trump, it's always how fast can I get your head spinning? And this is what's going on. We already know this. If anyone's paying attention to what's going on, he introduces all kinds of chaos very quickly and it comes really fast, and so we kind of forget what we were on sometimes. And just looking at the Iran picture, I just can't quite wrap my head around how he can be so involved with other people, right, in protest, for whatever reason in another country that realistically has nothing to do with us, man. Um, honestly, I mean that's just my opinion, but and meanwhile, right here in our neck of the woods, we have protests that he's not concerned with, even protests that have killed, several United States citizens. So you want to talk about confusion? I'm very confused as to how he could stand for the people of Iran and saving them from their government when he is a tyrannical schmuck right here to us, and he's not even that he's glossing over that. Me, I have my eyes set because I'm one of them, right? I'm one of us, right? Who is, just it's in.
Absolutely. I hear you. And there's a level of frustration of why are we even doing this in the first place? And I get that too. I think with Iran, I think that most Americans don't need to realize that they are an existential threat to not only our sovereignty, but the world. But that being said, Americans are wary. We're wary. We're extremely wary of more war. We're wary of putting our nose in, again, another place where we don't belong. And so there is some serious hesitation for sure. I think that, though, we need to remember the reasons of these expanded wars before, and the hope is to continue to not allow another 9/11 size disaster happen again. Um, and and I'm sure that everybody would agree with that. The problem I think that we're having here is that we've been inserting ourselves in places where we just don't belong too often. But I think that the cards on the table here is I definitely don't want to see a more unstable world here with an Iranian bomb that then they would use against Jerusalem, or in any parts of Israel, for that matter, or anywhere else in the Middle East, further destabilizing global stability. But but your points are very valid here, Richard. We are all weary. We've got a lot going on in this country. We've got a lot going on already here, and we're not even paying attention to it. We continuously address other things, other places. We're not paying attention to us. I think that is a genuine feel. The concern that I have is that if we recluse ourselves into this almost a xenophobic way, that when we do that, we remove one of the last major superpowers, true major mega superpowers that can really ramp up and get things done, away from the world stage, and it would quickly devolve us. But again, Richard, like I said, I know there's so much going on here. Persecution is real in this country, and they're coming after whomever doesn't fit their ideology. But the concern, I think, too, and this is coming from my military background, is that Iran they're just dangerous. They're just dangerous. I don't know. Where are you at on that, TJ?
Oh, you want to know where I'm at? Based off of that video right there, I feel that our president is still living in the Isle of Delusion. I mean, the Iranian president there literally said, we don't want the military here. But, President Donald Trump still insists on, inserting himself and somewhere where he's not wanted. And we see how that turned out. I can only think back to, when we were looking for Osama bin Laden and because of 9/11, what happened. So I understand his Isle of Delusion, but someone needs to snap him back into reality and let him know that, you know, where we stand is not with him right now, and he needs to get that in order before he goes and, you know, bombs another country or kidnaps another president or you know, starts a mass terror somewhere. You know, I feel as if he is teetering on the line of another world war. And that is where we don't need to end up. I mean,
Well,
we
yeah,
know how that ended up.
we definitely don't need to end up in that realm. And just to state to the world war, I can definitely say it, to the atomic clock, in the end of the world doomsday clock, was moved forward to the closest it was to midnight since its creation in the 40s. So, you know, we are at that point where we're looking at, you know, how unstable the world is and how the rest of the world is reflecting into this. I think it is to be stated though, Iran is consistently, and this is where a lot of the 9/11 hijackers originated from, you know, was the Iranian realm. And so I think that is something that needs to be remembered. But at the same time, everybody's got that valid point of, we are heading into an area where nobody wants us again, and who's going to do the dying? And so the question is, what do you do next? You know, and this, I think this is where great leadership skills and great diplomacy skills need to meet the road. And to seeing what the Secretary of State is going to be able to do is the question. I don't know what the Secretary of State is going to be able to do. I don't know if the Secretary of State is going to be able to make this happen. His track record in diplomacy has not been as strong, and they've leaned more on this peace through strength approach, and quite honestly, that is in itself frightening. But, you know, again, any final thoughts anybody wants to add into that?
My question is, are you on the doomsday planning stating these facts? Because that's what from the looks of that video, that's what it looked like. It looked like you were preparing to go in and not be ready for the repercussions of what's going to happen.
Richard?
My head is spinning. Yeah. That's basically where I'm at. Yeah. Just trying to make sense of it all at the same time. While it all happens at the same time, yeah, it's yeah.
All right.
I think in conclusion for me is for all Americans, be prepared regardless.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
So with that all being said, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to get into some domestic issues, and we'll go from there.
So here's the thing about trade wars. They're a lot like a bar fight, where the bartender keeps raising the tab and wondering why nobody's ordering drinks anymore. We're in the middle of what's being called Tariff Season 2.0, and American businesses are caught between a rock and a hard place. Harley Davidson, an American icon, mind you, is literally moving production overseas to avoid tariffs on American-made goods. Meanwhile, India is slashing tariffs on Harley bikes to zero under a new U.S. trade deal. So let me get this straight. We're taxing American companies so heavily that they're leaving America, while other countries are rolling out the red carpet for the same products. That's not protecting American business, that's punishing it. Here's what the numbers tell us. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, American consumers and companies paid nearly 90% of the cost of Trump's tariffs through late 2025. 90%. That's not foreigners paying the bill, that's us. The Tax Foundation estimates that tariffs cost the average American household $1,000 in 2025, with another $1,300 expected in 2026. These are the largest tax increases since 1993. And where's the money going? Tariff revenue in 2025 far exceeded any recent year. But here's the kicker. While we're collecting record tariff revenue, federal funds are flowing through Treasury in ways that create real uncertainty about whether funding is actually reaching the programs and agencies it's supposed to. The Trump administration's spending freeze and DOGE activities have left questions about whether money's flowing in accordance with the law. So let me ask our panel this. If tariffs are supposed to help American workers and businesses, why are American companies running for the exits? And more broadly, who's really benefiting from these policies and who's paying the price? Is this trade policy, or is it just another way to shift money around while working Americans foot the bill? Panel, what do you think?
Welcome back, guys. We're getting into our second part of the segment here. We're going to be talking a lot about tariffs. Since this president has taken office, we have seen unprecedented amount of tariffs. We've seen unprecedented amount of retribution tariffs, reciprocal tariffs. We've heard every term of tariff that I think that has not been heard since probably Smoot-Hawley. And so, again, we're back at it with another round of tariffs, specifically in India. They've been seeing tariffs yet another round. This time, I believe it is with the Harley Davidson factory. But we've also seen tariffs in the UK and Europe since the Davos push. And we've seen the push and the pull again. And as we're getting into the final phases of this budget season for the federal government, and we're getting into a lot of these court cases where we're talking about presidential power and presidential ability to enforce tariffs. And quite honestly, I think that this one is what hits most Americans right now directly into the pocketbook, like immediately. And so we're gonna kind of get into that. Richard, where are you at? I mean, I've seen, I'm not super old, and neither are you, but I believe that you have seen at least one more iteration of presidents than I have. And so again, where we're at is, we're drawing from historical relevance here in order to really kind of make the assessment on tariffs. And what is legal, what's not, what we should be doing. And I think that we're all kind of drawing from a playbook that we have never seen before, because this president has decided that tariffs are his favorite word, and he's just going to hand it out like homework assignments on a Monday morning from your math teacher. So based on those tariffs there, Richard, what are you thinking? Where are we at? What do you think? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm just curious as to where, we're making all of this money. He has stated over and over again, we're making all of this money. Just curious as to who the we are. It's always a question that comes up when he speaks of finances, because realistically, if Donald Trump is not, his art of the deal is being on the receiving end of the larger portion of whatever the deal entails, right? And if not all of it. And so my curiosity automatically leads me to believe, like, what is he doing with this tariff money? He's mentioning it a lot. He gets excited for it, and he also just kind of eliminates the fact that everybody's finances have gone through the roof because of the tariffs. He keeps saying that affordability, this hoax, this Democratic hoax, affordability. Well, we can't afford nothing because of the tariffs. I mean, it's getting difficult to afford, anything. And I do the shopping, in my home. And so I see, it's like, what the heck? So I'm not certain. or I am kind of certain he knows what he's doing, or whoever's pulling the levers on this, and it isn't for our benefit at all, as you can clearly see. So my look on the tariffs is just another propaganda, another thing that Donald Trump and his regime have thought up to milk the system.
And
I'd like to end with this really quick. I'd love to know where that money ends up. I'd like to know, like, yeah, where are all these billions of dollars that we made?
and you know, and
How do we benefit?
that being said, we've done extensive reporting. I have done extensive reporting on this tariff money, and he's claimed billions and billions and billions, almost over a trillion plus dollars. And when done further deep dive investigations, the amount of money that has been reported in tariffs is significantly higher than it used to be. However, it's nowhere near the amounts that he is saying that it is. And what is not clear is where this tariff money is going. Where is this tariff money at? I have seen no clear understanding of where the directions of this tariff money is going. We've said that we've given out extra pay raises to Department of Defense, regular military members in full active duty, and quite honestly, that was determined also to be a lie. And so the question is, where is this tariff money going? I don't know where this tariff money is actually going and what part of the budget it's in. And I know that it's supposed to be something that is completely and totally disclosed of where this money is being spent. And I feel like we're not getting that from this president. But I don't know, what's your thoughts, CJ? Because, as somebody that's, significantly is younger than the two of us on the show here, and I know that, you see things through a little bit of different lens, and you're still kind of out there living that youth life, and we're seeing these immediate effects within the retail stores. What's your thought process? Because I know that you also interface with a lot of people in your line of work. So what's your thought process?
Well, I mean, I'm probably just along the same lines with you guys. Whereas, where is this tariff money going? Maybe it's going into building the new White House, the new wing of the White House. Maybe it's going into rebuilding the Kennedy Center. But we have yet to see the effects of these. One thing that's commendable for the tariffs is that, speaking on Indian goods, we've come to a point where they are quite lower than what they were, before. It was about 50%. Now it's down to about 18. But just hearing more about this backlash we're getting from the Harley Davidson company really spikes my interest, because it's like, why? Honestly, why is there so much backlash behind it? And really, I'm just lost in it all. Just like you guys said, it's like, where exactly is this tariff money being spent? And why haven't Americans really seen the true effects of it?
Yeah.
Well, one of the bigger questions in all of this, as we discuss this, right, is why isn't anybody asking these questions? Because if you notice, no one has asked. Well, Mr. Resident, where is the money going?
Well, and I think that there's something to be said about that. And let me be very clear on that one. And that's just in defense of some of the more seasoned reporters that are out there. They got thrown out the White House. I think that we all need to remember that the reporters that are in the White House are the hand-selected reporters that the President of the United States of America and the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, decided that we're going to be inside of the White House to report to the American people on the things that they feel as though that they should be reporting on. And in the moment that they ask a question that's outside of the line, outside of the norm, outside of the okay, all you hear from them is dismissal and disrespect to the job that they're trying to do. And so, quite honestly, the people and the adults in the room no longer exist because they've put in these kids that just don't know how to ask the questions about what should be asked. Where is the line by line on the tariff money? Where and why are we doing the things that we're doing overseas? What is the true reason of taking out Nicolas Maduro? What's the true reason of going into Greenland? What's the true reason that the ICE is behaving the way that you do? Those questions cannot be asked if you're not invited into the room. And it's one thing to be said too, is that and this goes back, and Richard and TJ, you will both kind of laugh at this a little bit, but the line is how are you going to hate from outside of the club because you can't even get in? Well, we were inside of the club. We were inside of the club for quite some time. You decided that you were going to throw everybody out of the club because you didn't like the way they looked and you didn't like the questions they asked. And so now we're reporting from outside of the club. But don't be mad. Do not be mad when they build a new club. That's where it's at.
I have to hold my pinky up because every word you just said made me think that we're living in the world of Dr. Evil. We are living in the world of Dr. Evil right here, right now.
Well, yeah. And Mini-Me's following him around the White House too. It's okay. He's following him around the White House along with, Foxy but this is the ugly Foxy, so it's okay. It's not the one that's really actually hot or anything, So there is that, and then somebody's got to go chase the DHS secretary's face as it falls off and runs down the street. But hey, we're not going to get too far into that. With all those things being said, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking in all the domestic policies. We're going to be going into the redistricting efforts. We're going to be going into what in the heck is actually going on in DC, because I don't even know anymore. We're going to be going into just about everything you could think of in ICE and where we have been since the last week, since the last time we reported to you guys. So we got a lot that we're going to dive into when we get back, and so there'll be that. So.
We're talking about the price of everything, literally and figuratively, because apparently in 2026, the cost of enforcement, the cost of representation, and the cost of truth have all become negotiable items on the political menu. Let's start with enforcement. The U.S. spends $34 billion annually on immigration and border enforcement, more than 36 times what we spend on tax crimes, 21 times what we spend on gun enforcement, and 13 times what we spend on drug enforcement combined. But that's just the appetizer. The administration is allocating $168 billion over 5 years, with projections hitting $80 billion annually by 2028. And here's the kicker. The Cato Institute estimates the fiscal cost of mass deportations alone at nearly $1 trillion when you factor in the full economic impact. So we're spending a fortune to enforce policy that costs us a fortune. Efficient. Sure, if your goal is to drain the treasury. Now, while we're busy counting that cost, let's talk about who gets to draw the maps that decide who actually gets represented. Democrats are fighting back on redistricting with tens of millions spent in Virginia and Maryland. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries put it bluntly, when they go low, we strike back. 3 North Carolina seats cost Democrats the House in 2024. 3 seats, 1 chamber, 1 election. Meanwhile, Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson is refusing to cooperate with Democratic redistricting efforts, and California and Utah are in play. The maps are being redrawn, the stakes are being reset, and apparently representation is now a contact sport. But here's where it gets really fun. because this is not enough. While we're fighting over enforcement costs and redistricting maps, we're also fighting over basic facts. On February 5th, a video circulated featuring a racist Obama clip, a 1-second racist depiction. The White House's response: fake outrage, staff error. Trump denied responsibility and awareness. Obama commented on the loss of decorum, and we all moved on to the next outrage, the next lie, the next deletion. Lie, downplay, delete, gaslight, rinse, and repeat. So here's what I'm seeing. We're spending $1 trillion on enforcement we can't afford, fighting over maps that determine who votes, and arguing about whether videos are real or doctored. The price of everything just went up, and nobody's paying attention to the bill. Yeah, I think that is it. Fuck all, panel. Can y'all talk? I'm gonna go sit in the corner and cry. If we're spending this much on enforcement and losing representation in the process, who exactly is paying the price, and who's profiting from it?
Welcome to guys. The price of enforcement. The price of enforcement. It is a whole thing. It's a whole thing. The President of the United States of America has directed, as if in case you were living under a rock, by the way, let me back myself up a little. In case you guys were living under a rock and have not seen what has happened for the last year and a couple of months now, we've seen quite a bit of turmoil. Trump 1.0 was rough, but Trump 2.0 just seems to be insane. DHS Secretary and the CBP and Immigration and Customs Enforcement have been out on full patrol. And they have been going in, and they have pretty much all but shy of told everybody that their rights don't matter, and we're going to do what we're going to do. You don't have to like it, but we're just going to do it. And quite honestly, I think in some cities that they're waiting for their papers to get handed out. But all those things being said, where we're at is this increased level of enforcement, this increased level of division, this nationalistic approach, these commercials that are going out recruiting ICE agents, telling people that it is your right and your duty to come out and defend the homeland, propaganda that I never thought would exist inside of this country. Or for any reason whatsoever, and definitely not in this tone, are existing here inside of this country to this date. We have seen abuse, we have seen mistreatment, we have seen neglect, we have seen death, we have seen lack of training and lack of response. And let me tell you, America, that when Tom Homan goes into a place, when Homan goes into a place and he feels like the guy that's the adult in the room, and he feels like the guy that can calm you down and make you feel a little bit better and get everybody back into their corners, we have a problem. We have a problem. It's a big problem. Tom Homan is not that guy. He's not that guy. Homan is not that guy to make you feel better about what's going on. And the fact that that guy is the voice of reason, because the other guy was so preposterous, is something that we should really be frightened about. Let's just be very real about that right now. We should be extremely frightened by that fact. But here we are. We've seen now multiple deaths inside of ICE custody, multiple shootings in ICE custody. The trend is continuing. When we did the report last time, we were saying that they were on a trend of having almost a homicide a week or a death in custody a week. That trend has continued. We've seen other deaths. We've seen other injuries. We've seen other shootings. No deaths by shooting. However, we have seen other injuries. Other shootings have occurred. Minneapolis is still continuously contentious. Even though that the president has said that they're drawing down troop numbers, Minneapolis is still a mess. You've got other areas that are a mess. Seattle and inside of Washington State, specifically Portland, Oregon, is extremely messy right now. LA is still what is, and troops are still walking around the city, Washington, D.C. Like this is a weird sci-fi novel outside of Hunger Games with a twist of this dystopian last of the world type of bull crap that we're experiencing. But, with all of that being said, Americans are still voicing their opinion. They're still protesting. We have now seen a change, though, in the response with the administration when it comes to these protests. We have now seen them use used laws that were instilled to prevent true flagrant abuses of power within inside of protests. It was designed for abortion clinics being used against protesters now for going into churches, and they say that they're inciting fear and disrupting the services. They've arrested multiple people, including Don Lemon, who was a reporter with CNN for some time. And we've also seen now multiple other people arrested for interfering, as they're calling it, in using these protests. We're seeing people being locked up that are being locked up outside of town hall meetings because they're saying now that they're interrupting by using their voice. And the problem I have, and we're going to get to the panel here in a second, is this: if your voice is considered an interruption, and we live in a society where that interruption is what founded this country, and we are 250 years in, and we're supposed to be celebrating the fact that that voice, that singular voice, became out of many to one, that voice now should be canceled out to the singular instead of the plural becoming a unison. We should all be concerned, because I would really encourage those inside of this administration to maybe, I don't know, pick up the Constitution and, I don't know, read. Because quite honestly, what I'm seeing and what the rest of the world is seeing here is just beyond belief. It is beyond disbelief. And it is quite frightening. You shouldn't have to fear going outside, yet you do. You shouldn't have to fear being a black man going outside. You shouldn't have to fear being a Hispanic man. You shouldn't have to fear being any immigrant or migrant or minority going outside, yet you do. And why is it that you do now? And it's not, and for those who are unaware, it's not just because you're in the inner city, because you can go to the very nicest parts of town, and you can go to work and be in the nicest parts of town, and these people will come out of the woodwork and they will take you. And communities all across America have seen this. They've seen it from Cato, New York. They've seen it from in the lowlands of Texas to California to the Midwest. We have seen time and time again where ICE has come in with force and with disregard to human life and or safety, and pulling people out and locking them up, and then taking them to these new detention centers that are being built by private companies, where people are profiting time and time and time again, where they are profiting on their detention. People are continuously having to throw things out of the window just to communicate with the people who are out there trying to do the things to get them out of that facility. We don't have a clear avenue of where these people truly are, because when they're getting picked up in one state, they're being shipped halfway across the country. Their family can't even find them. And for that, we should also say a whole lot of things, and it's disturbing. If your family gets locked up, if you get arrested by the police officer, you know where they're going. They tell you. They say, hey, we're taking them over to this station right over here. It's over there. You can come by in 2 hours once we process, and maybe the bail will be set. Maybe they'll see the magistrate. You'll be able to get them out. But what we are seeing is that they're picking them up, and they're stuffing them on a plane, and they're taking them halfway across the country. They took a little 5-year-old kid from Minneapolis, and they took him to Texas. He had no family down there that we know of. His family was in Minneapolis. They took him to Texas. They fly back. Representatives had to go down there to check in on this kid, who is in a children's facility, which was really pretty much a children's jail. We're profiting on this to the max. They're trying to build new facilities in Pennsylvania, new facilities in Maryland. They're trying to build new facilities in Minnesota, inside of Texas. They're trying to go where the Republicans are working with them to build these brand new facilities so they can sit people in there for an undeterminate amount of time. And if this were just about deportations, let me be clear to you all now, we would not have these guys sitting in there for 365 days. We would have deported them and sent them back home because it only costs us more money to house these people. It costs us money, but this is how these new government contractors are making their money. Doge came in and killed jobs, but guess what? They went to deportations. That's where they're at. That's where the money is, guys. So, and you know what? And if I could track it down, I can guarantee you that you would find that all those tariff monies would go into all of that defense and all of those buildings, these brand new buildings. But hey, that's the America we're at, guys. That's where we're at.
They want to build. So speaking of these new facilities, they've gone across the country looking for empty warehouses that are huge, right?
Yeah.
That in hopes that whoever owns these buildings would sell them to the government. They want to build the structures that they have presently hold about 3,000 individuals. They want to build spaces that hold 10,000 and up.
Yep.
So picture that for 1 second. That's 3 times plus the amount of the original inhabitants of these places, and they want to build them everywhere.
Yep.
Who are they going to put into these places? Are they going to put as they've been saying, the most dangerous? Because that's not been happening at all.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. The most dangerous, though, Richard. The most dangerous. If the pace is what it is, and they've said they've gone through and they've locked up, you know, how many people they have, and they're only the most dangerous criminals, then we've gotten 600,000. So I know that there isn't 600,000 of the most dangerous criminals rolling around the United States of America, or we would be afraid to go outside. It'd be for a completely different reason. So the most dangerous don't exist. But you keep going because I'll crash out.
They don't exist because basically it's been uncovered that they have, of the most dangerous people, right? Murder, you know, things that are bombastic, if you will, right? They have like 12% of those people that they're housing. So think about that for 1 second, because the whole deportation scheme was to go after these rapists, murderers, these people, right, from Latin America that have come to destroy our country. And yet they're shooting at people 5 times, getting online, talking about how the bullet went through and just bragging about, you know, wait a minute. Like, what is going on with this picture? Like, this is not and who's to stop it, right? They've got all the money in the world. They've got more money, literally more money than some countries' whole economy for their defense. This one, no police force, very few armies have this kind of money. So why are they putting in so many resources for this? I mean, I don't know. I hate to think of it this way, but I think they're just coming after anybody, and you know, they're going to come after people who look like us because we don't look like them.
Sure, they are. Absolutely, they are. But let's also remember a couple of things, you know, on top of that. And then TJ, I'll let you get your swing in there because I swear I'm going to crash out if I don't. Number one of the things is what you mentioned earlier. They're going around and they're buying up these warehouses. And I want everybody to really realize and think about this. They may be going around, they may be buying these warehouses up, and they may be filling them up with detainees. But at some point, some company somewhere that the current president said that was going to come into these warehouses and employ all of you guys in these small towns that they're putting them in. Where are they going to then put their companies? Because these warehouses are now filled with detainees. And we're not going to just let them go. We're not just going to deport them. We're making too much money on it. We're just going to house them, because why wouldn't we? Because that's what we're doing. That's where we're at. You know, so let's all think about the untold economic impact that buying up all of these buildings and turning them into government, privately owned but government sponsored detention facilities, because that's where prison is now. Remember, prison is these government owned or government sponsored and privately owned buildings, but with multiple states, including red ones, doing prison and justice reform. They're losing they're losing their inmates. They're losing their cap potential. So then what? We start treating those, and they start to not recidivize, so then they don't live this life of reciprocal prison. So where's their money income going? They're going to have to find it somewhere else. So that being said, TJ, you hop in there before I tell you. I'm gonna.
Oh man, you want to crash out? I want to crash out. I mean, we are looking at a repeat of Donald Trump's same first year. His first year, only 40% of the people that were detained by ICE were were accused or convicted of the violent crimes that they were committing. And now we look at it again within this first month of January, and less than 14% of the people that are arrested out of almost 400,000 people are accused or convicted of these violent crimes. We're talking about less than 1% of them committed a kidnapping or homicide or robbery. We're talking about the ones that may have just like a civil violation, and that's about 40% of them that are arrested. We're talking about the people that may only have did a petty crime, and that's about 30% of them. Looking less than that, you've got
but I mean, this petty crime is also 10, 15 years ago. This guy was 18 years old, and dude is getting picked up, and he's 52 years old. And you're like, why are you picking me up? Well, you committed a crime back in 1982, so we're going to deport you because you're dangerous.
Right, and we're looking at even just children. Why are we detaining these children who have birthright citizenship? Why are we going back on the things that America was built on? We built relationship with other countries so that we could allow people to come in, and we could allow them to have children here, and their children get birthright citizenship. That's what America was built on. I mean, we are built on immigrants, literally. We know who built the White House. We know who built, all these buildings and structures that we have going on. But, we now want to categorize them as dangerous criminals.
Hey, it is what it is, bro. The 14th Amendment, who needs that? 13th, 12th, none of them. We don't need any of the amendments. Actually, it only fits when it works well with this administration. We've seen that with the Second Amendment, too. I think that we've seen that just recently with the Second Amendment. They've said, hey, you shouldn't be carrying a gun when you come to a protest. You shouldn't be doing that. That's not for you. You can't do that and not expect to be shot. Bro, are you serious? So you're now, it's so bad now that the NRA is no, you can't say that. You're literally going against everything that we've been saying for the last, 25, 30 years. So I'm gonna need you to stop. And these are the people that give them a lot of money. And they're like, I'm gonna need you to stop. And it's gotten so bad that most of the major benefactors have had to say, hey, listen, you've reached the red line. I'm gonna need you to pull back. We like the money, but we don't like it at the fact that, you're actually setting the stage for what will happen. I think that this administration thinks that they're impervious. I think this administration thinks that they're infallible and they're impervious, and that November is not coming. And I think that, and this kind of sets us up for our next topic here. November is coming, guys. November's here. It's coming. We are in election season. You've seen those redistricting efforts in multiple states. We've seen them in Texas. We've seen them in California, where Texas did theirs. California was like, nah, bro, you want to crash out? We're going to crash out. We're going to create 5 more too. And they did just that. They created the 5 more. And then the nice thing about California is they were like, we're going to go ahead and add it to a vote. And so like the people vote for it. And the people said, yeah. But here's the other thing as well. You're looking at Virginia. Virginia is going to redistrict. Pennsylvania was looking at redistricting. And Pennsylvania is interesting because Pennsylvania is a true swing state where it can go from blue to red. And they vote in Democrats for governors, but they vote in Republicans for assemblymen. And then they vote in Republicans for senators, and then switch back to Democrats. It is the swingiest of all swing states. I think more so than Florida was in the 1990s. And yet, the people of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, are like, no, this is a little too much, my guy. And I've not seen any of that money that you promised me. And that's the piece where I think the reckoning day has come. We're at that point of reckoning now. We're going to say, okay, well, where is all of the things that you've promised? The president and his people are hoping that the tax reform that they did last year will come to roost when people get their tax returns, but it's not going to much matter when things are triplet the amount of which they had to cost, or they don't have a home to live in, or they got to go spend all their money to keep the home that they have. So then it's a wash. And that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to wind up happening here. Also, on top of all of that redistricting, we are now starting to see inroads inside of the Democratic Party making inside of the Republican gains that were over the last 20 years. We've seen districts that have been reliably red turn back to the Ann Richard days of blue in Texas, where we have now a 1-seat majority for the Republicans inside of the House of Representatives. If anything happens, they're a tie. They only have a 1-seat majority. They have a 1-seat majority. Let's let that sink in. They started their term with like a 7-seat majority. They have a 1-seat majority. In the special referendum elections, Democrats time and time again have won. And what does that say? It says that we are trusting the Democrats more in handling the domestic affairs of the United States at this point. That you guys are not doing a good job. Does that say that it's a blank check to the Democrats? No. And let's let that be clear as well. It is not a blank check to the Democrats. It's not a blank check to anybody. But what it is saying that you guys are doing so poorly, so horribly, that inside of Texas, that they voted a Democrat. Guys, you want to hop in on this one? You're more than welcome to hop in here. But that's kind of where my read in the room is.
I just got to say, all this redistricting talk is definitely taking a toll on the entirety of America. Yes, they've done it in Texas, but it's gotten so bad that even Maryland is now like, let's go ahead and consider redistricting. Mm-hmm. Because, for people that don't know what redistricting is, it's the way that changes how, you are represented. Mm-hmm. And to see Texas step up in such a way that now a Democrat is, their representation, that's big to me. So maybe this redistricting is a good thing in a sense, but also you got to look at all the old red states that were like Texas and think, is there something we're not seeing there? Right. Is this beneficial to us to do? Because, we keep getting red, but on the grand scheme, we're actually blue.
Right. And,
we all understood what Donald Trump did on January 6th, right? We were all locked in with COVID, or, trying to avoid COVID, I should say. And we were glued to our TVs because something like this has never happened like here, right? And And so, as it progressed, we all understand now that he pardoned every single one of those cop killers and all of that, for whatever reason. But this man has not stopped in trying to interfere. He can't win fairly. He already knows that. So what is he going to do? He's going to revert to his old methodology, which is cheating. When he came out and told Texas to find to put up those 5 seats to redistrict, and it set off. Oh man, my head spins thinking about this stuff, man, because it's like, again, it's all happening at the same exact time with all the other stuff. So my goodness, like where does this end? And November, as you said, Dakota, November's right up the block, right?
Yeah.
We're right there.
Yeah.
And so what's gonna happen by November, from here to November, so that this guy can totally, if I mean, the best way to put it, so he can wipe out, right, the election system here in the United States, right?
Absolutely.
They can't lose, right? I think that his whole regime is acting as if they're not going anywhere, because they're relying on the orange chief to get them over the hump that, hey, you know what? We're a fixture in this. Like, we are the government forever, period, in the end. We're going to be here. We don't care about the American people and them not liking what we're doing. They have to deal with it regardless, whether they like it or not. I think that's where that's where he's trying to head us. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think too, with November, and it's also a cautionary wind, a tail in the wind for the Democrats as well. Yeah, we're in a crossroads now. The people want to see the Democrats govern. I think that they want to see them govern. They don't want to see them gesture or grandize or just sit there and just wave their hands in the air and do absolutely nothing. We've seen that before. We know what that got them. They lost the Rust Belt and they lost the presidency in an election that should have been a pretty easy to decide pick. But again, because of the response and the lack of response, really, we've seen them, in a realm in which where we at, guys. That all being said, we're heading down a track. It is what it is. There are going to be a lot of pieces that are at play, but I think one of the biggest things is going to be civility. We've seen out of the White House this week. They played a Truth Social video. I didn't think it made it to Twitter, of the former President Barack Obama. And inside of that video was this insidious, characterization of the former president, and his wife, depicted as monkeys and other farm animals for the other people of the administration. And I think that that really kind of draws upon us the days of Jim Crow era, where you bring people down in these shows and you depict them as these farm animals, so they're less than. But I also do remember another thing growing up as well, and that was Animal Farm. And that being said, I think that we're looking at our current day Animal Farm, with the president and all of the president's men. And that being said, it is frightening, the behavior that we see from people who should be leaders in the field and respected people in the field, and yet what we see is this almost frat-like behavior, this frat-like bullshit we continuously come across. And you're supposed to be in charge of the greatest and the strongest country in the world. You're supposed to understand Robert's Rule of Order and understand what it is to be an American at the same time. And both of those things seem to have been forgotten and lost upon this administration. The president, the vice president, in the entire cabinet. And I have a problem with that. But within November cometh the biggest thing. And James Carville said this the most. It's about the money, stupid. And that's what it comes down to. It's about the money.
Yep.
It's what it comes to. And the people are hurting. The people are hurting. We're seeing this new race within AI. We're seeing this new race within economic policy when it comes to Bitcoin and this cryptocurrency push. We're seeing inflation triplicate. We're seeing this growth in prices in ways in which that, you know what, I'm blown away by. We're going to get into that here in a minute when we get back from this break.
So let's recap. We're about to spend the next 9 months fighting over whether Americans need to show ID to vote, a bill that just passed the House but faces a filibuster in the Senate, while simultaneously redrawing congressional maps in real time to give ourselves an electoral edge. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, we've turned a halftime show into a referendum on who belongs in America. 9% of voting-age citizens don't have easy access to citizenship documents to vote. Kansas has disenfranchised 31,000 eligible voters trying to prove they were citizens. And yet, we're more outraged about Spanish-language pop music than about the actual machinery of voting access. Democrats are up 52 to 46 on the generic ballot heading into the midterms, but we're too busy arguing about the rules of the game to notice the game's already rigged. So here's the real question. Are we actually trying to secure elections, or are we just perfecting the art of distraction? And when the midterms come and the results don't match the outrage, who exactly gets to claim the whole system was broken?
Welcome back, guys. Getting into the economic realm of what we're looking at here with inside of prepping ourselves for what is November midterm elections, also just in general. You know, looking at this overall approach of where we're at with money, where we're at with the finance and the state of finance in this country. Things are not okay. The cost of housing is going up. The cost of living is going up. Wages, they say, are going up, but it's hard to say that the wages are going up because, quite honestly, you know, we aren't seeing any new jobs. We're seeing a reduction of work. We're seeing employees being laid off in droves. We're seeing this continual assault upon the middle class, and almost an eradication of the middle class. And so then we're going to see a two-class system. And the president swears that he's going to do more for the wealth of this country, and he's going to bring people up, but we haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And I don't know where we might come across to see any new suggestions that we might be there. But TJ, you know, what's your thought? Because I know you get to travel quite a bit, so you get to see a lot more folks than I do. And I travel a bit, but I know that you travel a little bit more.
Oh, well, I haven't traveled in like the past month or so, but you know, from the people I stay connected to, you know, this isn't making America great again at all. We aren't doing, you know, what your slogan says. We aren't, you know, really caring about the American people. Just like you said a little earlier, it's about the money. They keep, you know, reinvesting back into the people that are part of the administration, in a sense, creating this hierarchy that, you know, really doesn't give a fuck. I mean, doesn't give a damn about us as society goes. They could care less if we kill each other off. That's why the ICE agents are out here just shooting people and not giving a damn. They could care less if, you know, a starving kid in Minnesota may be going hungry at the moment, and her father may have a foot on his neck. They could care less if, you know, the homeless in DC don't have a place to go, but you keep trying to kick them out. Um, they could care less if California floods in the next 10 years and technology, you know, takes over. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's all about making sure that they look good on the back end for themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, and that's kind of where we're at. This is this is where really, and Americans really need to wake up and realize is that we're in a realm, in a time, and where our voice matters, and our vote matters, and getting out to vote is the most important thing. And I'm not saying just get out to vote. I'm saying you need to continue to vote, not just this once. You've got to continue to vote. If you don't continue to vote, your voice is not heard, and that's how we wind up with these people. But that all being said, you know, November is coming, and we need to vote. We need to vote. We need to vote at the levels of the first time when Barack Obama ran for office. When he ran for office for the presidency, we need to vote at those levels. We need to vote at the levels where the line wraps around the door. We need to vote at those levels. We need to do that in every town, every city, every state. You guys need to come out and you need to vote, because right now they're moving their way to marginalizing our voice. They're redistricting their way to marginalize your voice. They're redistricting the way to make sure that you don't have a say. They're making sure that you can't get to the polls because they're going to require you to have 3 and 4 IDs. And, you know, most people don't even have one that's valid. And the ones that do have the ID that's valid, when they get out there, they get told they need to have another one, and quite honestly, who carries around 2 IDs with them unless you need to, or you're doing something where you have to have 2 IDs. I don't know too many people that do, and even inside of our industry, inside of broadcasting and television, I may carry around 2 IDs, and I know a couple other people do, but I know that a lot of folks don't. I know that they don't even have the 2 IDs to carry around. They're going to require you to bring a birth certificate in. What? You're going to bring your social security card in because you got to go dig that out of the lockbox. You know, for some people, their social security card, they haven't seen it in 15 years. They don't need to see it. What are you going to do when you start sending old people away because they don't have what they need to vote? I think it's disgusting. I think it's gross. And on top of all of that, and we have this debate here, but let's have the clear debate. And then Richard, I want your input as well. The one and a most important thing is that the Constitution of the United States states that the states have the right to prescribe how the elections are executed. They prescribe the manner of how their elections are executed, because that is how we survive. That's how this Constitution survived. That's how we got to 250 years. States had rights. And like it or not, the states get to prescribe those rights. And on top of that, most states have prescribed that you have to have a voter ID, an ID to vote to get in. Not a voter ID, but an ID to vote to get in. Most states have that requirement. Most states require an ID or a non-picture ID. There are a few states that don't. The states get to prescribe how they do their elections, though. Not the President of the United States, because that's how we are in a democracy. We're in a representative republic. That is how this is a democracy. That's how this works. The republic stands because of that. Richard, what's your thoughts?
So this premise has worked for 249 years and some change, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're coming up to mark the 250th year. Oh, got to take a deep breath because, like, what are we celebrating when we're going so backwards? I think it's just a cold punch in the face with his little hands to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's celebrate that. And then right after that's done, I'm gonna come after all you freaking people with ICE and all of that and put all you assholes in jail, all you Democratic states. What?
Yeah.
He wants to federalize the elections. Who does that?
Yeah.
Here in the state, like what? Like who does that, right? So again, these are just listen, and we have to pay attention because all that he's saying, right? He's going to attempt to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Without doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the courts will have the final say probably, and we all know, 9 times out of 10 how that works out. It doesn't work out in America's favor. It works out in his favor for whatever reason.
Yep.
So, yeah, man. Like
I agree with you. And, we're living in a world right now where your voice is marginalized. And I've said it a million times already this episode, and I will continue to say it. Voice has been marginalized. But I think it's also remembering, as we are in this celebratory year of 250 years, we are celebrating 250 years. I think that we need to also remember that we saw one English. But the reason I challenge the question to you why. And here is why I challenge that question. I challenge that question is why is it that it has to be in English language? We are Americans and we are a melting pot of humans. Am I going to go to Canada? Am I going to ask a French Canadian to speak in something other than French? Because they speak English there?
I love that you said that. Because that Super Bowl performance did not only just, tell us a lot about, Americans as a whole, but also it taught us something else too. It taught us that, there are other Americans in every Spanish speaking country. Most of them are in South America, which also states they are some sort of American.
Well, I mean, and let's not even preclude just the Spanish-speaking cultures. Let's talk about the African-speaking cultures. Let's talk about the cultures that speak Gaelic. Let's talk about the cultures from Pennsylvania Dutch lands, where they still speak in the old school Pennsylvania Dutch tongue in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Let's talk about that, because a Super Bowl was in a separate language, in a melting pot of humans. We decided that we were going to crash out and have an all-American Super Bowl performance where we were going to pray and sing and cuss and pray and sing and cuss. And now we may cuss on this show and we try to keep it under control. We know what we're doing. I know that if I went to church today at my church, I know if I started cussing in church around the pastor, I know that I'd probably get backhanded by about 5 people who remembered me when I was a kid, and then or their kid who is now my elder, and who would all then backhand me and be like, Mama would not have approved of that. So if you're going to have a Christian service, because that's what Turning Point USA did prescribe out there, why would you have the individual that you would have see before you, it's because this is the individual that would show up for your crap. That's why. I have a problem with churches that profit off of people and spread junk gospel. I have a problem with indoctrination. We are out of many one, but we have many thoughts. That harmony is what makes America truly unique. We have many thoughts. Many people communicate different things. We have different things that we do, and we do them in the way that we think that we should be able to do them. And it's your right to do that. It's your right to do that. There may be consequences. There may be consequences from that. As I told my students, remember there are two things. One, remember who you are, where you come from. Because when you travel, people will ask you one of two things. One is, what's your name? And where do you come from? Where do you come from? And I think that that is the most important thing. The most important thing that we can remember is where we come from. If you forget whom you are, you forget what you are. Never lose your identity of where you come from. Remember the roots that raised you, the roots that grew you, the roots from where you came from those roots. Because if you don't, that is when we lose our identity as a country. That is when we lose our soul. It doesn't matter about what the rest of these fools are out there saying about, oh, you've got to speak English to be American. Oh, you've got to speak this to be that. You do not need to speak English to be American. We are Americans because we are a part of the society. Because this is a melting pot. This is what it is. We are out of many one because of that. You will have the right to make all of the decisions. And that's the nice thing about America, is that we have the right to make all of the decisions. We have the right to choose. We get to choose.
So who's really anti-American through all of this, right? Because really, if you look at it, right, the MAGA thing going on there, right, that worm, right, they accuse Bad Bunny,
Right.
my people, mi gente,
Right.
my Boricua brother, right? They accused him of being non-American. This is how ignorant they are to the facts, right? Like they just come out of their face. Well, you know, the liar in chief teaches them well, right? Like they can't even plant themselves around their own lives. But that to me is clearly anti-American.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But that's the thing.
You know, because you speak a different language and because you're from a different place, you know, come on.
And as I finish it up here with us today, guys, I want to know, everybody to know, we live in a world where you have that choice. You can, because this is America. This is America, and you can speak how you want to. You can do as you want. You have the choice to do whatever you want. I want to caution everybody, and this is the most important part, and this is one of the rules that I used to tell my kids when I taught high school, is that you may have the choice to do whatever you want. But remember, not all choices are good choices, and not all choices are positive choices, but you get the right to choose them. But every choice has a consequence. Whether that consequence is good or that consequence is bad, every choice has a consequence. I can sit here and not pay a single thing, not pay any of my bills and pay any of my rent or my mortgage or anything, but that choice does have a consequence. They would come and they'd take me out of my home. They would come and they would take everything that I own away. That choice is a choice. And the nice thing is that in America, you have that choice. And when you stop having choices in this country is when it stops becoming a democracy. And I think that that is one of the most sacred things that we need to remember. We need to remember that our choices are our choices. And so while Turning Point USA had the right and the ability to make what they wanted to, and they should stand by their firm convictions and what they believe, even though I may believe it's garbage, somebody else may not. And that is their choice. It's their right. But I think that we need to not vilify the other side because you don't agree with the other side's opinion. I'm not vilifying Turning Point for garbage. I'm going to say it's garbage, but I'm not going to vilify it. It was their right. It's their ability to put on that documentation of what they wanted to. But that is out of many one. And I think that that needs to be remembered. With that, I give final thoughts to Richard.
Oh man. So given that another week has passed, we're in another month, another year. I've been around for a minute, and what it's looking like now is pretty ugly. I just hope it gets better in time before we lose it all. I really do. And we have to stand in order to be heard, because they're not trying to hear us. Even if we're standing right in their face yelling at them, they're not trying to hear us. We got to get louder. People, we got to get louder. We got to make sure that we, the people, are heard. That we, the people, are not going to be stripped of our constitutional rights and privileges that we as Americans have in this country. And it's happening right here in a country we call home. My hope is in final thoughts, my hope is that we continue as Americans to be able to say, I am proud to be an American. Because, at times I am not proud to be an American. And that's the unfortunate, circumstance that I find myself in. I question, like, wow, what's so proud about this? Like, people are looking us like at us like we're crazy, and we are. we are. It's as simple as that. And so that's my hope. My hope that it gets better before it gets worse. Because if it gets any worse, we're all in trouble. Get your asses ready, because it's not going to be a soft landing.
TJ, final thoughts.
I think I reiterate what I've said before. Go out and vote. Don't let nothing stop you from doing that. If they tell you got to go back and get some new identification, go back and get that new identification. Just like Dakota said earlier, your voice matters. And right now, I believe this administration is just trying to invoke fear in us, so that they can, overrule everything we do. But I think it's a matter of rebellion in the right way.
Absolutely. And with that all being said, guys, and I am glad to have you guys in for what is another season of Capital Discourse. And we hope to have many more seasons where we bring and talk discussions in which make us all uncomfortable at times. And we're part of that conversation. And it's important that we be a part of that conversation. We be present for that conversation.